So I'm going to dive into, I call it JamstackNG. You call Angular with Scully, whatever you want to call it. But we're going to be talking about the Jamstack today. And I'm Aaron Frost. I love the Angular community a lot. Pretty much most of the work I do is around the Angular community. Anyone with questions about anything I'm about to talk about, you should reach out to me on Twitter. My DMs are open. Ask questions. Um, whatevs. I may redirect you to come to one of our various team meetings and ask your question and get help. But reach out to me on Twitter, and I'll make sure that you get help with anything that we're talking about. If anything's not clear, if you're implementing and having problems, reach out to me there. All right. So first I'm going to start with a couple announcements. We did 1.0 of Scully recently, which was huge for us because we started this a little almost around a year ago, a little less than a year ago. We started building Scully, and we worked with Steven and the Angular team to conceptualize what it could be, what the features needed to look like, and then the Angular team gave us a push, and we started going, and we've turned it into something big now. We were focusing on the docs. We wanted to make sure, you could have the best Jamstack toolchain on earth, but if you don't have good enough docs, it doesn't matter how good your Jamstack toolchain is. And so we were really focused on getting the docs up to par. And so once the docs kind of got there, we 1.0. Anyway, so let me kind of tell you about 3 features that we're working on. And these are 3 features that dramatically speed up the app, and they dramatically speed up your build time. So the first one is critical CSS. This feature landed a few weeks ago. So what this is when your page is pre-rendered, Scully has the ability to look at the page and say, hey, I only need a small fraction of all of your CSS in order to pre-render this page. So I'm going to only keep that small fraction I need, and then we're going to lazy load the rest. So it's got a way for you to defer load of your giant, most of us have giant CSS bundles. So now you can only load the stuff needed for the pre-rendered view, and then you can defer load everything else. And it even takes into consideration below the fold, and it removes kind of the CSS for the below the fold content as well. So that's one feature. The next one is we're actually building right now, and we're getting ready to go alpha probably tomorrow. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Sander Elias from the Netherlands. He's close by, and he's working on this right now. So every time you do a Scully build, it renders every page in your app. And imagine your Angular app, if you had 500 pages and every page makes 10 requests to the backend, every time you do a build, you're going to hit your server 5,000 times. And that can slow it down. And that can also cost you money. Especially if you're pointing at your prod servers, that can be expensive or dangerous to get that many requests on your server. So build cache will allow you to cache the calls to the server after your first build, so that rebuilds don't cost you anything and they don't tax your production or staging or QA environments. And so we have build caching. Build caching will turn into some enterprise features as well, which is going to be really, really cool. Just know what this means for the average developer. Scully just got way faster. So that's what build caching means. It got faster to build, which for developers, that's often one of our biggest concerns. And then there's incremental rebuilds, which is hold on, the incremental rebuilds. If I've built my app and then maybe Ferdinand's on my team and he changes one of the pieces of content in my app, without incremental rebuilds, I have to rebuild all 500 pages on the website. But maybe I only want to rebuild one page. And so incremental rebuilds allows Scully to smartly say, oh, since the last build, the only thing that content affects will be one page. So we'll just rebuild one page. So it will dramatically speed up the build times of your app as well. So there's a lot of integration going on there, and a lot of focus on our front on that to speed up build times. Some of our clients are building 30, 40,000 pages. So this incremental rebuild will save them literally hours every day. So this is a big feature. Anyway, for a lot of you who don't know what Jamstack is, that may just kind of gone straight over your head. But I did want to get some announcements in. So you got I heard it here first moment. But let me kind of dive into what is the Jamstack. This is kind of the first concept. A lot of us have heard about it, though the Angular community is quite far behind the rest of the JavaScript communities as far as Jamstack goes. And I know a lot of us kind of know what it is, but if I asked you to turn to your neighbor and explain it to them, you might struggle to conceptualize or package the concept of Jamstack. So let me focus on that real quick. Then I'll get around to describing how the Jamstack works with Angular. So first off, let me just say nothing will make your Angular project as fast as using the Jamstack and as embracing Scully and as using Scully and embracing the Jamstack. And this is just true. I've worked with a lot of architects, a lot of the best developers in the community, and I've spent hours, months even optimizing projects. And despite all of my optimizations and all of my hard work focused on getting perf into the app, Scully dwarfs anything I could have hoped to provide in my own. Like it dwarfs anything that the Angular team or the React team or the Vue team or any team could hope to provide users, just simply on its nature of how the app gets delivered. And so, really embracing the Jamstack will monumentally change the user experience on your website. So let me kind of get into it. There's three big pillars of the Jamstack. The first one is caching. Your app makes a bunch of calls to the backend. Can you cache those? If you could cache some of the data from your backend and serve it from your CDN, how much load would go down in your server? I'm going to talk about this in a second. Then there's pre-rendering. This allows you to deliver a pre-rendered view of your website so that the users can experience your page much, much quicker than having to wait for your JavaScript to download and turn on. And then there's the CDN, which is where you put all this cached and pre-rendered version of your site out onto the CDN, because the CDN is going to be the most efficient way to get assets down to your client. It's going to be the fastest experience for your users, whether they're on desktop or mobile 3G. This is going to be the fastest experience. So let me kind of walk through how these three pillars of the Jamstack like dramatically increase performance on your website. So for the first one, caching, I want you to imagine your Angular apps. Any given page will make multiple calls to the backend. But what if some of those calls don't change in between users, and they actually don't change every day? They change rarely. What if I could cache some of those calls? So imagine your production server gets 1,000 requests per second right now. But if we turn on Scully and if we embrace the Jamstack and cache some of those, maybe our production server goes down to 200 requests per second if we're actually leaning all the way in on these data caching and content caching. So this is a big deal to fully embrace content caching in your Jamstack approach. The second one is pre-rendering. Okay, so I want you to imagine your app without pre-rendering. The user downloads index.html and they don't see anything in an Angular app. The index basically has app root in it and a bunch of links to JavaScript tags. So they don't see anything for this whole entire red period. It downloads the JavaScript. Even once the JavaScript gets done downloading, they still don't see anything while the JavaScript evaluates, right? And then once the JavaScript is finally evaluated and executed, they finally are going to see something, and then the user can see your website. Okay. Contrast that with pre-rendering, and now the user experience is dramatically different. They see the website as soon as they come to your page. The JavaScript still downloads in the background. The whole time they're already seeing something as the JavaScript's downloading. Then the JavaScript gets evaluated and they're still seeing something, and they're scrolling and clicking and the app's just working. And then finally, the JavaScript version of the website will turn on, and the user doesn't really know that happened if you're architecting this correctly. And so this is like a dramatic difference between this experience for your users and this experience for your users. We're talking about, for some websites, I have a client that they make, hundreds of millions a year, and they're seeing a difference of 7 seconds between their Scully version and their regular non-Scully version. And so it's a dramatic increase. I was working on a phone call last night with a client. I don't know how, but their mobile 3G version takes 25 seconds to load. And I was just like, yo, dude, how do you even have clients with that much time? But they do. And so embracing Scully is going to flip their website on its head. It's going to be crazy for them. So this is a big deal. The next one is the CDN. So imagine your website doesn't have a CDN, and all your data and all your assets are being served from your server. So any user that's distributed across the globe, they've got to travel around this big blue sphere that we're on, and they've got to come to your server, get the thing, and then the server sends the thing back to their side of this big blue sphere that we're on, right? The big blue spaceship. And those trips across around the spaceship take like a long time to get there. And so it's very, very slow by comparison to a CDN, where the CDN distributes all the assets to their area. And when they want that data, it's already on a server in their area. So it dramatically increases the perceived performance of your website. So yeah. All right, I'm going to keep going. All right, so now that I've glossed over the three main pillars of the Jamstack, let me apply those three pillars into explain to you how those get applied inside of Angular using something like Scully. Okay. Um, so these same three pillars exist. Let me kind of talk how Angular and Scully help you embrace them. So Scully has a tool called transfer state that allows you to cast some of your API calls, right? And it takes one line of code to do. I'm going to show you how to do it in a few minutes. And it's very, very simple to cache some of your content calls at the time that you build your app. It's very, very cool, and it's very, very simple to do. Scully abstracts it into a one-line call. Then you've got your pre-rendering, and Scully helps two ways with this. The first way it helps is it helps with route discovery, and you get to help it find all the routes in your app. Okay, and sometimes that's not very easy for Scully to do. It attempts to find all of them using a tool that Minko built called Guest Parser, and it tries to find all of your routes. And then the second part that it does is it pre-renders each of the routes that it found, and it knows how to do this smartly using a tool called Puppeteer. And then it saves out the output, and you have a pre-rendered page. Sometimes both of these steps will need to be enhanced by you, or you need to assist the app to do that. And in the past, when we've tried to do pre-rendering with tools like Angular Universal or our own Puppeteer implementation, plugging into those can be more than slightly tough. But Scully has a plugin system that makes this kind of stuff very, very easy. Okay. And there's lots of pre-existing plugins that the community's built, so you get all sorts of already existing optimization just added to your website with very, very little effort, as simple as adding a plugin. And then the last one is CDN. This actually doesn't change with Angular and Scully. The only difference is in the past you've been deploying like one indexed HTML, and with Scully you're going to be deploying one indexed HTML for every single route in your entire app. So you're going to have lots of indexed HTMLs by comparison to what you were doing before. So yeah, these are still the same three things. This is an example of a client of 1-800-contacts there, Scully. They're an early Scully adopter. In fact, they were the first Scully adopter. On the right here, you've got the version of the website using Scully. And on the left, you have their non-Scully version. It's about to flash white. So here it's starting over. After about 1.5 seconds, the Scully version appeared. You can see that on the right. And on the left, the non-Scully version, it just sat there and thought about it for quite a bit longer. And then it finally caught up. And so this is kind of the difference of what the two websites look. Now, I need to impress upon you, this implementation that you're seeing this side by side, this is like the simplest implementation of Scully I could have done. I didn't add any of the CDN caching. I didn't do most of the CSS optimizing. I didn't do any image optimizing. I simply said, hey, pre-render this and deliver it, and let's see how much faster it is. And you can already see like day one, it was dramatically faster. And they have lots of analytics, and they were able to see, hey, this does affect our conversion to the tune of lots of money. So yeah, this is a big deal. Anyway, let me keep going. So let me kind of cover some concepts. Given time, we're going to cover these concepts. We're gonna have you guys aren't going to clone. I'm just going to walk through this test project. You can find it on my GitHub if you want to go check it out and kind of see the final version. We're going to show off route plugins. We're going to show off render plugins. I'm going to show you how to do transfer state. We'll add blogs so you can have Markdown support. So you can actually author a blog using Markdown, which is what really all Angular developers have been asking for the last 4 years is, hey, I just want to write my blog with Markdown and Angular. I don't want to have to learn Gatsby to do it. So, and then we'll talk about some additional services like Scully route service, lifecycle hooks, extra config, and then we'll do some time for QA as well. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to pause real quick. Ferdinand, I keep getting requests to admit people from the waiting room. And I keep clicking admit. Is that cool? Okay. I'm going to keep admitting. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. I don't know who they are, so I hope I'm not admitting like a bad actor and all of a sudden we get like Zoom bombed. So I'm just hoping I don't mess this up. All right. Okay. So if anyone wants to clone these repos I'm working with, I have a donut app. We have a fake donut store. It's got donuts in it. Everyone's about to get, depending on your preference for donuts, you should get hungry-ish. And yeah, so you can check them out on my GitHub. I'm not going to slow enough for you to follow me. I'm just going to kind of bust through this. But if you want to check it out later, they're out on my GitHub. All right. So let me keep going. Let me walk over my code. Okay, so this is a very simple Angular project that we've got going here. Okay, it looks very much like the default Angular project when you generate a new app, except for it has a few routes. It has an about route, so you can kind of learn about the app, and it's got the home page, which loads a donuts module, which shows you all the donuts, and then it has the donut/donut ID route that loads the singular donut module, which just shows like the actual details for a single donut. So let me show you this app real quick. This is what it looks like. And you're probably like, wow, this looks a lot like that default Angular app when I create a new project. That's because I shamelessly stole most of that design for this demo, just so everyone knows. And I scraped all this donut information from Krispy Kreme's website because I also didn't want to build my own donut API. So I just used a scraper to scrape the donuts from Puppeteer or from Krispy Kreme. So don't hate me. Anyway, this app, it has a list of donuts on it, and if you want to go to one of their detail pages, you can. You want to go back to all the donuts. Like, it's very simple app. The only other route it has was be an about route that just kind of talks you through, hey, why did I do a donut store? Well, I wanted to show an app that has Angular. I wanted to have an app that has route parameters, so like the donut details pages. I wanted to be able to cache some calls, and I wanted to be able to add blog support. So that's kind of where we're at. So I'm going to kind of walk everyone through that as part of this presentation today. So and this is the version of the app that is being ng served, right? So this is just localhost 4200. This is the app that every Angular developer should have. And I just want to show something. I'm going to come to my dev tools, and I'm just going to disable JavaScript. I'm going to do a refresh just so everyone can see, yeah, that app doesn't work without JavaScript. Like, we can agree, default Angular apps don't run with JavaScript disabled, right? So if the bundle fails to download, or if it takes a long time to download, or whatever reason they walked into an elevator and like got cut off, this is what the user sees, right? So I'm going to re-enable JavaScript and refresh just so we can like, yeah, this is what an Angular app functions like when JavaScript fails to load. So now I'm going to add Scully to my project. Like, all I'm going to do is install Scully, and then I'm actually going to rebuild the app. And you're like, holy crap, that's all he had to do. He didn't have to do crazy amounts of config to pre-render. Like, yeah, we're actually going to pre-render this page without doing anything besides installing Scully. So let me walk you back over the code. So I think I actually already ran the command before. Oh, I didn't run it. Okay. So this is going to take some time. But to run this, all you have to do is say ng add Scully.io/init. This is our schematic that drops Scully into your project. Okay. And it does probably 15 steps. And we didn't want to have to give you like, do step 1, do step 2, do step 3, do step 4. Oh, if you're using NX, do it differently. We didn't want to have all that. So we built a schematic that takes into consideration your project or your workspace and adds Scully for you. So that's what this schematic is. I'm just going to run it. It's going to take a long time. What's happening? Oh, yeah, I'm in the wrong project. Sorry. CD code donut. Okay, here we are. All right. So now let me run this. Now I'm in the right directory. When you're presenting and you do a command and you get read back, that's always like the worst feeling ever. You're like, dude, I'm going to spend 40 minutes debugging my app instead of actually teaching anything. And it's scary. For anyone who hasn't presented, it's scary, I promise. This takes forever. I'll just play a quick song. I only know one song. So don't ask for, I don't take requests. I don't think that's a good song anymore. I think that song's outlived its life. I need to learn a second song. I learned that when I was in Boy Scouts. Yeah. So I don't think, I don't really like that song. It's just the only one I can play. I learned it when I was a teenager. So anyway, okay, so we're done. Scully, the schematic was like, hello. And it went through and it kind of let me know what it was doing, right? It's like, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to install the stuff for you. I'm going to update your app module, your polyfills. I'm going to update your package JSON. I'm going to create this Scully config file. And I'm going to create a couple Scully plugins files and your specific Scully TS config. So it just kind of lets you know, hey, I'm making myself at home here and I'm making a bunch of changes for you. And if I come over to my change log, you can kind of see some of these changes that happen in my project, right? Like I got some new files. I got some modified app modules. So you can see in my app module, it added the Scully libs module. Simply, that's all it did to the imports. To the package JSON, it added a couple of scripts for me, as well as adding the Scully dependencies to my package JSON. Not a lot going on. Like the most important thing that it did was it added my Scully config. Okay, like that's the most important thing for everyone to kind of understand what happens. So I'm not even going to show you the Scully config. We're just going to run Scully. Like I just want to show you. I don't have to do anything. So I'm going to bust open my terminal here. I'm going to say ng build and npm run Scully. Like that's all we're going to do. And then your minds are going to explode because you're like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. You're the best. And I'm going to be like, yeah, thanks, yo. We're best friends. And let's give this a second. Let's give it a second. Everyone's got their cameras off. So at least I got 4 people. 4 Johannes folks joined us on the stage. Thank you very much. Keep going, buddy. Keep going, buddy. There we go. Okay. So there's our ng build. Now the Scully build's running. And yes, I will allow telemetry. Okay. So let me kind of walk you through what just happened. So after the ng build, Scully needs a built version of your app in order to pre-render. It can't use like the non-built version. So you have to do actually an ng build first. Anyway, so it kind of said, hey, I found an Angular build. I'm importing it. I'm starting your servers. And then this only appears the first time you run. It asks if you can, if it can take some telemetry to see if you get errors. So that helps us make the platform stronger. And then it says, hey, I'm finding all the routes in your application and I'm going through your app and finding those. If you have any additional routes, I'll pull those in as well. And then it says, okay, I found all your routes. It's mad at me that I didn't. I'm going to come back to this error because this is an error. And it's actually, we're trying to teach you how to enhance your app. But I'm going to skip this for now. And it says, okay, I rendered your about route and I rendered your home route. So these are both pre-rendered now. Think about that. It's crazy, right? So I'm actually gonna launch the pre-rendered version of our website. So I'm gonna say npm run Scully serve. All right. So now Scully's gonna go ahead and serve this up. All right. So it launches 2 servers, one where it serves your build, your Angular build, and then one where it serves the post Scully version. So I'm actually going to go into that post Scully version. Okay. So I'm going to click on that. No. Yeah, here we are. Okay, good. So this is the post Scully version of the same website that you saw before, right? Oh yeah. When I installed Scully, sorry, I have to restart my ng serve. You have to restart it after you add node modules. And so sorry, that's all that was. All right. So here's my, come on, bud. You can do it. Hello, you're there. There we go. Okay, so here's our Angular version. Here's our Scully version. So the biggest thing you're going to notice is if I do that same disabled JavaScript parlor trick and I refresh, there's no JavaScript on this page, but the app is still running. Like, and I can actually click on things, and it worked. And that's pretty cool. You have to admit, there's no like I disabled JavaScript. That's nuts that worked. Admit it. Anyway. But like if you say, hey, just show me the JavaScript you got downloaded, it didn't download any JavaScript. It said, I want to download JavaScript. So this is actually a cache version of my website. So I want to show you what that build looks like. So let me come back over to this build folder. By the way, real quick, Johannes and Ferdinand, you two both know me by now. I'm long-winded. I'll talk for like 8 days straight if you don't stop me. So I'm gonna need you to wave me off at the end, right? When you're like, dog, you got 5 minutes left.
I will take care.
Okay. When I got 5 minutes left, I need you to tell me so that we at least give some Q&A.
And don't mind the questions. We will collect them at the end.
Beautiful. Okay. So all right. So in our Scully config, let me open up this Scully config. So here's our donut store config. It created this. There's not a lot going on here other than saying, hey, where's your project root? What's the name of your project? And then where do you want me to put the output, the build, the result of your Scully build? So mine says dist static. So I'm going to come up to my dist static folder. Actually, And if I go to that about route, which is one of the routes that got pre-rendered, and if I format this and come to the bottom, you can see, hey, yeah, there's quite a bit of content in here. It's not just an empty app root component. It's actually an app root component with a ton of stuff inside of it, which isn't normal for an Angular app. I think we can all agree. Normally, you just got an empty app root and good to go. Let me come over to my home page's index.html. And this thing is very much the same. If I come down to the bottom, I've got lots of donuts. Got the strawberry ice donuts. Got the powdered strawberry cream. You know your favorite. I don't know your favorite. You know it. Anyway, it's like this is what a pre-rendered Angular app looks like. And all I had to do was install Scully. Like I got that. All I had to do was install Scully, and Scully's like, I got it. I'm gonna pre-render the site. And that's very cool. But I want to kind of take a step back and say I did gloss over a problem that happened during the build, which is the build said, hey, you probably have 50 donut routes because you probably have 50 donuts, but I actually skipped those because you didn't teach me how to get donut IDs. That's what this error message means. Like I don't have a route configuration for that route. Any route that has a route parameter in it has to have some configuration. So I'm going to teach everybody how to get that configuration. Okay. Let me start by showing you my API. I'm serving that data from localhost 3000, and the donuts come from /donuts. Okay. So it just gives me back an array of these donut objects. True. So like there's this, I couldn't have made the API any simpler. I made it as simple as I could get it. Just know that. Like this is a simple API. And so there's not a lot going on here. So I need to teach Scully, hey, go to this API, get those things back, and then the IDs are this ID property. That's what we're having to teach Scully. So we're about to go do this in just a few lines of code, just so you can start to see, like, wow, Scully really is easy to work with. So let me kind of walk you over here. We're going to pull up our Scully config. And we're going to add some, I need to add this person. Okay. We're going to add some configuration for this route. So if you remember that route, let's actually just copy it over from here so that I don't mess it up and ruin the whole live presentation, which I've been known to do. Okay. So we're going to add some config for that route. Okay. And we're going to say, I want you to use the plugin, JSON plugin. We have a JSON plugin. So you're going to define the route type, the plugin type. And, now I'm going to define the config in that route for the donut ID. Okay. So I'm going to say for the donut ID, I want you to use the URL HTTP localhost 3000 /donuts. And on that array that you're going to get back, I want you to use for the donut, I want you to use the property on each of those things. Does anyone remember the name of the property for the IDs? If you say I can't see your camera, so I'm okay. I'll cheat. It was ID, right? It was ID. Like that's all. It was simple. All right. So that's all I have to do. Okay. So actually, this is a very, very simple config. This is say for this route, use the JSON plugin, and to resolve the donut IDs, go to this URL and pull the IDs, pull the ID property off them. And then Scully's smart enough to say, all right, I'll go get those properties. And then one by one, I'll substitute the IDs in here and I'll use it to pre-render. Okay. It's not magical. It's programmatical, even though it feels magical. Even though you got that Hogwarts goodness when I'm about to show you this, it's not magical. It's very, very normal. All right. So let's say I've made some changes to my code, but I didn't change any Angular. So I actually don't need to redo my build. So I'm just going to say npm run Scully again. This is going to do it. This time it's going to not give us that I'm mad about that routes thing. So now it's going to actually just go through and pre-render every single route in our entire app. It's going to say, hey, it took me 6 seconds to do that. You have 49 distinct pages. And it's going to say, hey, I put all these in their corresponding route files. Like these are all here. And this is what this app looks like. Let's go ahead and see it over here. If I come up to these, if I look at like, hey, the original glazed donut got put into static donuts, original glazed donut index. So we'll go donuts. Where's the original glazed donut? And then we'll look at that one's indexed HTML, and we'll format it, and we'll go to the bottom, and we should have that original glazed donut content. Perfect. It's exactly what we ended up with. That's exactly what we wanted it to be. So we're golden. Anyway, so now I pre-rendered the whole entire website. And if you have an app that has a lot of parameterized routes, it's not harder than what I just showed you. So if you can do HTTP requests, then you can build plugins to discover your whole entire route in probably an afternoon. So so yeah. All right. There's one thing. I'm actually going to delete this build folder because there's some data in there that are artifacts from last build. All right. So there's one thing that I want to do. Oh man, I got to do the build again. I should have deleted that. All right, we're going to do it again. It's going to take 6.5 seconds again. 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000. It's a lie. I lied to you. Took 10 seconds. Okay, here we go. All right, so now I'm gonna npm run Scully serve, and we're gonna serve this thing. We're back over here again. We're looking at this. Okay, I want you to see if I look at my XHR calls. Hold on, I gotta re-enable JavaScript. When the Angular version of my app turns on, it calls the Donuts API. So you can see it's calling, if I look at this, it's calling localhost 3000 and it's getting the donuts off of that API. What if I want to cache that call? Because I do. I want to cache that call. I don't want to make that call anymore. In production, I don't want to call my server to get donuts anymore. So let's cache that call real quick. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my code and I'm going to show everybody how to use transfer state. It's a term that we shamelessly stole from Angular Universal, which I don't know where they took it from. Maybe they invented it, but we're going to show off the transfer state. So I'm going to open up the donuts component. Donuts component. So this is our component that gets the list of the donuts. All right. Now we're going to bring in the Scully transfer state service, private transfer state, and it's going to be transfer. Come on, dog. Complete. There we go. Transfer state service. Okay. So this is the Scully transfer state service. All right. Now I'm going to use this to cache this call so that call gets cached during the build and it doesn't get made anymore in production. So let me show you how simple this is. I'm going to actually make a new donuts observable just to kind of show how easy it is. So I'm going to say const donuts to observable is equal to this dot transfer state dot use. No, autocomplete. Okay. So I have to give it two things. The name of the key in cache. So I'm just going to say, hey, put the donuts in there. Call them donuts. I'm going to spell it right though. And during the build, when you actually have to make the call, go ahead and use this observable. Okay. So that's all you have to do. You have to say, hey, use this observable when you're actually making the call. But other than that, don't just pull it out of cache. Okay. So it's very, very simple. We've tried to make it a one-line of code change for you. All right. So I'm actually going to comment this out and I'm just going to say, hey, let's just use this for now. Okay. Now I'm going to rebuild the app and we're going to do rebuild and npm or ng build and npm run Scully and npm run Scully serve. Let's do it. You're done, and then I'll show you a trick in a second of how I develop with Angular and Scully. And we're about to add some stuff that will make this all go faster. So there's my ng build. Here comes my Scully pre-render, and then we're going to serve it. Pre-render. Done. Now it's serving 1618. Okay, come over here, do a refresh. Now, if you look at on this page, you'll now notice there's no more XHR happening, right? So there's lots of JavaScript and everything coming down, but the JavaScript didn't make any more XHR calls because that XHR call got cached into the pre-render version of the page. And then when the Angular version of the page turned on, it said, all right, I'll just use the cache version that you cached during the build. So now my homepage doesn't make a request to my backend anymore. So I just cached that call. Let's do the exact same thing for like these details pages. So I'm because each of these details pages they request and they get their data as well. So I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, let's stop getting those and let's get them. Yeah, let's get that from the cache as well. Let's come over here and I'm going to open up instead of the donuts. We'll do the same thing with the donut. And it's literally the exact same thing. So I'm going to call this donut API. We'll say this is donut is equal to, oh, I got to bring in this transfer state. Private transfer state service. This dot transfer state dot use transfer state. We'll call this donut instead of donuts. And we want to use the donut API observable, okay? Which is just this observable right here. And it goes to the API and gets the donut. So that's done. I'm going to redo the exact same command we did before. Actually, I'm going to show you real quick. Here's how I do this when I'm building. On one side, I say ng build watch, right? And then over here, I say npm run Scully serve watch. And now this will do a build with a watch on it. Come on, dude. Sorry, it errored because the build deleted the results of the. Oh wait, hold on. npm, maybe I don't want to do a serve watch. npm run Scully watch. So this will, anytime I make a change in my Angular code, it'll rerun the build for me, which may be what you want to do. I'll just kind of show that happening. So I'm just going to change my Angular, hit save, which will force the JavaScript to rebuild, which then forces the Scully to rebuild, okay? And then I'm just going to come over here and I'm just going to run a, I'm going to say, oh man, I need a fourth tab. Beautiful. npm run Scully serve. So now we're just going to run the server that serves it all off of 1618. Okay. Oh, maybe don't do that. Maybe sorry. The watch is already doing it for me. Yeah, my bad. Okay. So the watch already does the serve for me. Okay. So over here, now if I come to this details page, the details page doesn't make a request anymore. And I can go back to the home page and the home page now made a request for data.json. So it's not talking to the API, but it is getting the data for the donuts, but it's getting it from the CDN. So this is optimization where the data is now coming from the CDN, not from my API anymore. So I've cached all subsequent calls to the server. Anywhere I click is going to get another data.json and another data.json and another data.json. Okay. They're all going to get data.jsons, but that's because the transfer state plugin caches each call for each individual route into the data.json call so that everything that you intend to cache gets put out on the CDN rather than making you go to the server. And then next time you rebuild it, it regenerates that cache. So that's kind of that. Do I have any time? Do I have enough time to kind of add a blog just so I can kind of show off the blog stuff?
Yes. So okay. Usually your time would be done now, but I stressed a little bit my time. So feel comfortable to have 5 minutes more.
Okay, I'm gonna take 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you and sorry. Okay.
No, so if anyone, it was me.
Okay, cool. So if anyone has an Angular project and you want to add Scully to do blog support, it's as simple as doing ng generate at Scully.io init, and I'm just going to say blog. Okay, this is going to run the blog schematic. So this is going to set up our project to have some blog stuff in there. It sets me up with a blog routing module. It modifies my app routing module, and then adds a new configuration for blogs into the Scully config. So if we look at the Scully config, it added this in there. So now I have a content folder plugin that will read my markdown files, right? And where do I write my blogs? Well, just up in this blog folder in markdown, right? So I can call this whatever I want. Let's change publish to true. we'll say the slug is ng Heidelberg. Yo, did I spell it right?
Absolutely fine.
Wow, nice. I didn't think it was going to work. All right, cool. JamstackNG. Sorry, let me take the S out of there. With ng Heidelberg. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna render this site again. Okay, so now when it actually maybe already pre-rendered. Let me see, did it render this time? I don't think it did. Maybe it did. Let's go look and see if it's in the disk folder. We got blog. Okay, so it didn't re-render the blog. So I'm actually gonna do this and I'm gonna tell it to run the Scully build again with the watch. See if it picks it up. We should have 50 routes this time instead of 49. Did it do it? No, it still didn't. 1 second. I think we may have to do scan routes. To make a rescan for the routes. Yeah. That's what it was. Okay, now we should have 50 routes. Okay, now we had 50 pages delivered. One of them is the blog folder, and it rendered blog/ng Heidelberg, and here's our blog. If we come down to the bottom, we'll see our content in there. ng Heidelberg, or JamstackNG with ng Heidelberg, got an H1. And yeah, if you want to check that out in the app, are we still serving? Yeah, we're on. Okay. So if we go to blog/ng Heidelberg spelling. Okay, yeah. So this is what, like, it's not very styled though. Like, you still have to be a good developer. Like, you still have to make your blog not look crappy, right? Like, that's on you. But it actually, you can now author your blog with markdowns, have it hosted on wherever you want to host it, and using everyone's favorite blogging language. So yeah, there's a lot more to learn about this. So let me just kind of say, hey, if you have any questions, I'm going to give everyone some resources to use. Go to Scully.io. This is our website, and our docs over here are really there's a getting started and creating your blog. The getting starting module should take you through installation, building, server, give you some tips to keep going. And then if you're like, hey, conceptually, I don't fully understand it, we have some concepts sections. Maybe we can walk you through all the different plugins that are in the app. And then there's just a reference to kind of go through like all the. So go to Scully.io, another really good place. And hopefully everyone is joining the Angular Discord. If you're not, you just go to discord.gg/Angular. That will take you to the Angular Discord. I'm already on. Why are you treating me like I don't know? Discord. Open Discord. Okay. So like this Discord over here in the Angular one, there's a Scully channel. Okay. So if you want to get questions, if you have questions about Scully as far as topics go, there's people over here who will answer questions. They're here all day. Sander, who's one of the core team members, he'll walk you through it. There's tons of community members that are doing it. They'll walk you through it. And then we also have weekly office hours where you can join us online, where we'll solve any problems you have in your project. We'll jump on and solve them with you. So that is the prezzo. Reach out to me at Aaron Frost on Twitter, Aaron at hero.dev, and I'll try and take care of your questions or help. Make sure your team is successful with the Jamstack. That's what I want to do. So reach out to me. Done.
Thank you.
Done did it.